Hello everyone, this is Coach Dinosaur. Today I am featuring Italian game with the first move order e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4. It is one of the oldest recorded chess opening in 16th century. It has simplicity but also sharp lines. I'm going to show you those basic lines that can trap your opponent if this opening is not studied. Basically, black can reply nf6 or bishop c5. I'm going to discuss the latter, bishop c5, and also there are transposition in this kind of line. So it can be a mix of bishop c5, or after bishop c5 there is also knight f6. So let's talk about bishop c5. White can castle, and after knight f6, white can play d4. This move is a strategical sacrificial attack where if black does not know the theory, he might end up in a devastating position. So, for example, knight captures d4. So we have here knight captures e5. The bishop is attacking the f7 at the same time with the support of the knight on e5. So if, for example, black castles to protect the f7, here comes bishop e3. And if you can see, the bishop is pinned. And for example, uh, black plays d6, bishop takes. If, of course, if pawn takes knight, then there will be bishop takes bishop. So bishop takes d4, there is knight takes f7. Knight is attacking the queen, and again, if rook captures, bishop captures, king captures, white wins the exchange with a pawn advantage. So if knight protects the bishop on c5, bishop captures the knight. Again, if pawn captures, bishop takes, or the other way around, it's just the same. So here, logically, bishop takes bishop is only move. Here, uh, bishop takes f7 check. So the black king is under attack. At the same time, uh, the bishop on e3 is hanging. So for example, rook captures, absolutely, this is a winning exchange advantage for white. And now if king moves on h8, there will be bishop b3. Still, the bishop on e3 is under attack. At the same time, this knight will go to knight f7 check, forking the queen and the rook, which will lead to exchange advantage. By black will sacrifice the rook to the knight. So in this position, uh, knight should be moved here on e6 instead of castling. But after bishop takes, the d takes e6 is a wrong move because of queen takes queen, king takes queen, and fork. It's forking. And if, for example, the pawn captures, white has an easy play by knight d3, bishop e7, e5, knight d5, and queen f3, preventing the king from castling. And of course, um, black's position is not good. For example, rook moves on f8, there's check, and capture the h7 pawn. And if, for example, he plays d6, there will be c4, d6, and here b3. And the diagonal attacking the king is very much stronger, and it gives pressure to black, especially to the uncastled king. So here you go. That's why this knight captures is really a not good move, or not good option for black. So we have here pawn captures. So after pawn captures, white can now play e5. So there are lots of moves here. Let's talk about one by one. Knight e4. Knight e4, simply queen e2, and the knight is trapped. So for example, if pawn protects the knight, then just end pass on capture. And if bishop f5, there is knight bd2, and the knight on e4 is totally devastated. So for example, pawn captures. Now f5 is still the same. White can play this, but it will complicate your position if you want the safest, but winning is knight bd2. And totally this is a winning position for white. So knight e4 is not a good option. We have here knight h5, but again, after knight d5, black has to protect the pawn on f7 and the knight on h5. And if, for example, the knight moves back, absolutely this is a not so good position. White can play c3, and if, for example, pawn captures, we have here queen d5, queen e7, knight takes c6, and black is in big trouble. So black's good option is d5. So we have here pawn captures, pawn takes bishop, capture the pawn. It looks like black is in big trouble, but actually black is doing fine. So check, bishop moves on e6, and after bishop g5, there is bishop e7, which we will talk about later, and queen d5, which is the not so good move. Most of the time they play this line, queen d5, in an online game. So here knight c3 is the move. There's no way out to capture this because of queen captures. So for example, he plays queen d6, then there is knight e4, a very devastating move, attacking the queen and the bishop. So if queen moves on d5, then knight f6. If here is the same thing. So now after queen f5, here comes the knight on e4. The threat is simply knight e6. So here, if for example rook captures the pawn, knight h4, the queen is trapped. Why? Example, he moves here, check. If he moves here, check. So there's no, if moves to d5, it's the same thing. So the rook captures is not a good option. So we have here bishop e7. Here comes now the bishop takes. So now if knight takes, we have here queen takes pawn, and again black is in big trouble. Knight f6 is the next move, so knight c6 check, king e7, knight check, and white is an exchange up. So if king takes, we have here knight takes d4, queen g4 for example. Of course, knight captures, queen takes, white, black will have a hard time to protect the king, while white is um, pressuring the queen side, and at the same time the pawn on g7 threatens queening. So that's why this move, queen d5 is not a good option. So we have here bishop e7, which I will feature in the next, because it has a very critical position. So for example, bishop takes, there are knight takes, there are also queen takes, there is also a interesting move, king takes e7. So we will feature this in the next um, video. So let's talk about now bishop takes. After bishop takes d4, we have here knight takes d4. Again, we will feature um, uh, knight takes d4, which are more preferable by black in this kind of line. But we will talk about those that are basic lines pertaining to this position. But of course, in the next coming videos, we will talk about f4 d6 line. But what if knight moves on c6? Absolutely, pawn captures is not possible because of queen takes knight. So if knight c6, there is a very good move for white. Bishop takes f7. So if black does not capture the bishop, then thank you for the pawn. And if king captures, then there is check, knight takes, and here comes queen check. And absolutely, white gains the space plus development plus um, centralized structure to combat the f6 knight. So for example, there is move here, there is queen d4 planning to play. So for example, he plays here, we have bishop attacking the knight on f6, threatening to capture the knight. So if king f7, we have here knight c3, followed by knight rook f2, rook a f1, and is winning for white. So I hope you like this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.